Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. My name is Takahashi. I am from the National Institute of Polar Research. Today, I'd like to talk about the Antarctic biology from the penguin's eye view. So what kind of image do you have about the Antarctica? What do you think about the Antarctica? You might think about the ocean with the floating iceberg or the icebound continent, and you might be thinking about the very harsh environment when it comes to the Antarctica. So this is a satellite view of the Antarctica taken from the southern part of the globe. As you can see, for the creatures, and the Antarctica is a very harsh environment. Inside of the continent, so the ice-free area is only the 0.4% of the entire the continent, and the mean altitude is 2,500 meter, and the lowest temperature recorded so far is minus 89.2 degrees Celsius, and this is very windy, and the maximum wind speed recorded so far is 91 meter per second. And as you can see, the Antarctica is really harsh environment for any creature. However, in the coastal area of this continent, and then you can see a number of the living creatures. And please guess what are those black spots? What are they? So that those are the black spots, and each one of them represent a penguin. So that this is a big breeding colony of the macaroni penguin. This colony is located on the South Georgia Island. This is in the surrounding of the Antarctica. So that there are 44,000 pairs breeding in this colony. Macaroni penguin, so that it is a penguin having a very pretty yellow feather. So that in the entire Antarctic Ocean, and there are about 900 pairs of this type of penguin. This is an Adélie penguin. So that this is a breeding colony, and you can see a number of the groups of the Adélies. In the entire Antarctica, there are about 2.6 million pairs of the Adélies. So in the Antarctica, besides the penguin, then we have the albatross and the seal and the whales and the other larger creature animals. So although the inside of the continent of the Antarctica is very harsh when it comes to the environment, but the ocean surrounding the continent is supporting the livelihood of the animals. So in the ecology of the Antarctica, those large marine creatures play a very important role. So in order to understand the Antarctic ecology, it is quite important for us to study the ecology of those marine creatures. But the problem is how can we observe the behaviors of those marine creatures? This has been a major challenge until very recently. So in the Antarctica, it is very easy to observe the penguin on the land. When we go to the colony, so that we can observe the behaviors of the penguins who are not afraid of the human beings. And this is the Adélies. One of the Adélies are making the nest by piling up the stones. But one penguin is stealing stones from its neighbor's nest in the neighbor's absence. So that we can observe very frequently the penguins are fighting with each other because of the stones. So that the flippers, flippers are utilized as weapons, so that they are hitting with each other with the flippers. So that the other, so that the individuals jump on the fight. So this is a big fight. So that this kind of fight can be observed on the continent of the Antarctica. A very tenacious attack. And he won, and he's returning back to his nest after the victory. So as you can see, as long as the penguins are on the land, it is relatively easy to observe them. But once they go to the inside of the ocean, if they go underwater, very difficult to observe their behaviors. So what was developed was, as explained by Dr. Sato, a bio-logging device was developed. So that this is a small size and a recorder with the sensors and the memory devices. So that this bio-logging is attached to penguin in order to observe the underwater behaviors of the animal. So it was the researchers of the penguin and the series of the Antarctica who first utilized bio-logging because those Antarctic animals are very suitable for the attachment and recovery of those equipments. That is the reason why the bio-logging technology has been started with the research in the Antarctica. So early model of the bio-logging is very simple, just measuring so that the water pressure in order to understand the diving depth of the creatures. But from such a simple device, so that we could understand the very amazing diving capabilities of the penguins. Small jellies, and then a chin strap and a penguin, they can dive down to a maximum 180 meters. With that Gen 2 penguin, this is in a middle size, and they can go down to the 225. And the emperor penguin, the largest one, can dive as deep as 564 meters. So that with the use of the bio-logging, we could understand the diving capabilities of the different penguins. So that we started with a simple device and measuring the depth. But recently, not only the depth, but the other parameters can be recorded with the advancement of the data logging. So that this is a GPS, as well as so that the depth and the data, GPS and the depth and the data logger is attached onto the penguin, so that we can see so the foraging journey from the breeding colony to the underwater foraging, so that we can measure the horizontal movement of the penguins during the foraging journey. So with the GPS, we understand the horizontal movement, and by utilizing the depth, so that we can get so that depth information, so that we are able to get a three-dimensional journey of the penguins. In addition to those parameters, as Dr. Sato has already mentioned, by utilizing the accelerometer, so that we can see the flipper stroke and frequency so that underwater. The latest development of the data logger is the one equipped with the visual so that the recorder. So that this is 82 gram in weight, and the visual images as well as the depth and the temperature parameters can be obtained with this camera type data logger. This is mounted on the penguin. So far it was technically difficult to develop a small enough data logger, but capable to capture significant amount of data sufficient for the ecology research. But after a long time hardship, a Japanese team successfully developed such a small but capable data logger. As this data logger can take still cameras up to 10,000 images at 1.3 so the megapixel. What is an epoch-making is not only the behavior of the penguins, but also the surrounding environment of the penguin can be obtained with this kind of data logger. So by utilizing a camera, so that we could do a lot of researches, and I'd like to show you some of the cases. And one is group behavior, the other is a relationship between sea ice and penguin foraging. So I'd like to show you two cases, studies of the researches. So the first is about the group and behavior. So please look at this footage. So that this is the vicinity of the shore base of the Antarctica. So that on the ice there is a small hole, and the penguins are diving into the water through the hole in group. So that they are diving through the hole. After the diving, and they are coming back to the surface of the ice through this hole. So that there is one penguin, sort of which is numbered, who is this data logger bearing penguin. So that this is data of the depth of the data. But during the diving in the underwater foraging, this area, So the two birds' depth is different by about the 10 meter. And the bird B, so that is always diving more deeply in comparison with the bird A. So penguins are diving together in group. So we wonder if they are working together for the foraging, or are they eating independently. So that we wanted to sort of know that, and we wanted to know the reason why the penguins are doing a group behavior when it comes to the diving. But we cannot tell so that from this depth information only, so that to know whether the penguins are working together for the foraging or not. So the camera is attached to the penguin in order to capture the images of the penguins underwater in group. So this is an image from the camera. So that this is another penguin, so that in front of the camera bearing penguin. This penguin is swimming very fast. And once it is attached up to the 10,000, then still pictures can be obtained. And then we examine those pictures one by one, and we selected very good pictures. And we selected pictures showing foraging of the multiple penguins at the same time. So that there are two birds. So they are foraging, so that they are feeding on the Antarctic krill, so that this looks like a shrimp, and this is a zooplankton. So that this bird is sticking his neck into the swarm of the krill, so that he is feeding on the krill. The other one, so that who is a little bit distant from the other one, but he is feeding on krill on his own, not together. So that this is an image from the penguin-borne camera, so that you can see the 11 different birds, so that they are coming up to the surface together. And these three other pictures are showing that the penguins are feeding on the krill. So that by observing those pictures, so that although they are diving together, but it appears that the penguins are behaving differently when it comes to the foraging. So foraging seems to be totally independent from each other. So that in front of the individual bearing the camera, there is another individual. So that this another individual seems to be very independent from the camera-bearing penguin. So although they are diving together, but when it comes to foraging and eating, it is an independent act. So that we reach this kind of conclusion from the images taken with the camera. So that the reason for the group diving is not to have a collaborative foraging, but there should be another reason. What is another reason? In many animals, they are acting together, and the primary reason for the group behavior is to reduce the risk of being eaten by the predator. So if they are working acting in a group, so that each individual will have less risk of being eaten by the predator. In the Antarctica, there are the predators, such as you can see from this picture, leopard seal. This is one type of the predator of the penguins. So that the penguins try to dive together, so that in order to reduce the risk of being attacked by the predator. So that this is suggested with the analysis of the images taken with under camera. Another case study of the research by utilizing the camera data logger is a relationship between the sea ice and the penguin foraging. very recently, we have observed a warming of the Antarctica, especially in the Antarctic Peninsula. There is a rapid pace of the warming. And then according to the observation of one of the base of the continent, over the past 50 years, the annual average temperature increased by 2 degrees Celsius. And due to this kind of warming, the ice covering the ocean has reduced. And then this reduction of the sea ice might have a negative impact on the penguin. And in reality, in this Antarctic peninsula, so that there has been the report of the population decline of penguins. However, a few studies examine the immediate impact of the sea ice on the penguin foraging. So we started our research by utilizing the camera mounted on a penguin, and we tried to see the relationship between a change in the sea ice at the surface of the ocean and a change of the behaviors of the penguin. So that from the images taken with the camera, and then we can see and record the situation of the sea ice and the distribution of the prey and the water, as well as the penguin behavior at the same time. So by utilizing this kind of data, and you can see the situation of the surface of the ocean and how it might have an impact upon the underwater behavior of the penguin. For example, in this picture, so that this is before the diving. So that this is the head of the penguin bearing the camera. On the surface of the the surface of the sea, there is no ice. So that they are diving 6 meter deep and 16 meter deep, and then 20 meter deep, and then the penguins encounter the krill swarm. So this is another diving exercise, and again there is no ice on the ocean surface, and the penguins dive 5 meters and down to 79 meters, and finally penguins encounter the krill swarm. This is another diving on the surface, and you can see the sea ice. So the penguin is diving, so that at the depth of the 7 meter, so that they reached the krill swarm. At the 9th depth, so that this is a picture immediately before penguins are feeding upon the krill. So that this is the head of the penguin bearing the so that the camera. This is the beak, and in front of the beak, and there is a krill. In the next moment, and this krill is eaten by this penguin. So we could have this kind of data which was analyzed, and we analyzed the condition of the sea ice and distribution of the underwater prey, as well as the underwater behavior of the penguins. So we analyzed the data in the jellies. So if the sea ice is reduced at the surface, penguins have to dive more deeply. So we can see this kind of relationship. And the depth of the diving of the penguin is correlated with the depth of the encounter of the krill. So with the less ice at the surface, so that the penguins have to dive more deeply at the depth, so the penguins encounter the krill. So that this is an schematics on the surface of the ocean, less ice, and the krills is distributing in a deeper area. In order to reach them, so the penguins have to dive more deeply. so that we don't know exact reason why the change of the distribution in terms of the depth and depending upon the condition of the sea ice. But the underneath of the sea ice, there is sort of phytoplankton, so that the krill is feeding upon. So with the less or the no ice, so that the sea ice, so the krill do not come up to the surface. So the immediate impact of the reduced sea ice would be that in order to reach the prey, penguins have to have an increased efforts for the diving. So this is an immediate impact. But this is a result of the 1 year observation and a 1 year record, and we have to continue our research further in order to see the long-term impact of the reduction of the sea ice upon the behavior of the penguins. So before concluding my presentation, I'd like to give the message, and my message is the same as that of Dr. Sato. So one of the largest challenges of the Antarctic biology is to assess the change of the environment of the Antarctica due to the climate changes, and then we have to assess the impact of this climate change and the environmental change upon the ecology. So in order to understand the environmental change, we have utilized satellite remote sensing and sea-based, ship-based observation. But those technologies provide us with very large-scale information with the human viewpoint. But the penguins and other living creatures in the Antarctica are sensitive to the change of the environment in a minute scale. So in order to consider the impact upon the ecology due to the change of the environment in the Antarctica, it is quite important for us to observe the surrounding environment of the living creatures from the minute viewpoint by utilizing technologies such as biologging. So I believe visual images taken with the penguin bearing a camera will be very useful for us to understand the environmental changes in the Antarctica from the penguin's eye view. Thank you very much for your kind attention.